Hello, beautiful people from around the world. My name is Bernadette Desir. I am a Haitian Canadian adoptee, mother, mental health advocate, and the founder and host of the Unleashing Potentials podcast. And joining me today is fellow Canadian Clover Johnson. How are you?
I am fine, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
I am delighted to be here.
Awesome. So, can you tell us more about you? Who are you? What is your journey and the impact that you're making in the world and also in your community?
Okay, so first of all, I'm a mother of three grown daughters. I am an educator. I am a co-parenting coach, and I am seeking to make an impact in the area of co-parenting. Here's why. The co-parenting space is one of those spaces that has been characterized or is characterized by what I call the three V's: the violence, the volatility, and the void. Not enough light is shed on this space. And the range of violence comes from threatening text, physical shouts, intimidating presence, but it goes as far as murder in retaliation against the other parent, and murder against the co-parent because the co-parent was awarded shared custody or maybe even in rare cases full custody, and that angered the other parent, and at the handover that parent is shot and killed.
Hmm. Hmm.
There is also the other parent who calls the other parent on FaceTime and tells the other parent what they're going to do, and they do it. These are all real life stories. There's one, again, where the parent kept saying to the dad, the mom, I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you. And he kept putting it off. What did she do? She went up on the roof. She threw the child down on the tarmac. So these are real life stories impacting real people and our children. The volatility is that up and down a roller coaster, emotional roller coaster that we feel when we are out of control, in the sense that we are not sure how to respond to this breakup that has engulfed us.
Hmm.
It is challenging because we are in a place, we're in uncharted waters. We are disentangling now a family structure that in which our identity was wrapped up.
Yeah.
And now we're wondering, what's the world going to think of me? I'm going to be judged, right?
Hmm.
And the void is that emptiness that comes with this season of life. And I've been in many Facebook groups and I've related to several people about this. And what they say is, even if I didn't initiate it, I just feel so sad, so empty, so lost.
Hmm.
Because the go-to emotions in this season, it's fear and shame.
Mm.
Fear of the unknown and shame in terms of our self-judgment, how other people are going to also judge us. And as women especially, there is a burden on us because of gender stereotypes. Gender stereotypes tell us that women carry the responsibility for the success of relationships. And when it breaks up, everybody's going to be looking at you through a side eye or a full eye, but an eye of judgment. And we fear that.
Hmm.
And I am not saying that this is right because it isn't. Gender relations are slowly unraveling and catching up to where they should be. But this is still the reality that we face.
Yeah.
So I want to be a cheerleader for women, especially who are navigating the co-parenting space, and to tell them that you can get through this. I am here to dismantle, to disrupt the mantle of shame that hangs over and penetrates this season of your life. And
Mm.
that you need to be able to move on
Yeah.
using three pillars: healing, growth, and thriving.
Oh, wow. You just spoke life into someone's situation, and you just give many people hope just through what you shared. And we're not even halfway through our conversation yet. And your what you just shared resonates with me in so many aspects, and I know to so many other people that are listening, whether they're male or female, what you're doing is impacting them in some ways. And the beautiful part of our impact is that we don't always know or physically see the people that we're feeding hope into. So I want to thank you for showing up for many people, for coming on this amazing platform, and for speaking light and truth. I think we need that. We're so hungry for it. So thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you. It's absolutely necessary because the statistics is now telling us that almost one in two marriages will fail. So essentially, what we need is a new model of parenting, which should be based on co-parenting, shared parenting, because children need both parents. And this is another myth of the parenting relationship, is that a mom can be a mom and a dad. That is a myth.
Mm,
A dad brings a completely different role, leadership and identity and affirmation,
mhm,
as opposed to the role of a mom. Your father gives you that stamp of identity. And for those of us who are Christians,
mhm,
you remember, this is my beloved son in whom I am well pleased. So that's what our fathers do. So, as a mom, if you are not practicing shared parenting, or as a dad, if you're not practicing it, what you're practicing is parental alienation, which is depriving a child of the input of both parents, which is a requirement for who they become as whole, healthy children, able to navigate the ups and downs of life. Imagine growing up with a foundation that's falling apart. And then when they become adults and the challenges of life hit them, they crumble under the weight because that foundation that should have been laid in parenting, that
mhm,
foundation of identity, affirmation, unconditional love. So if that foundation is not laid,
mhm,
they are going to be challenged. And the statistics, I know people sometimes don't like to hear this, but the statistics tell us that when there's one parent absent in terms of input, especially the dad,
mhm,
early sexual relationships, multiple partners, they take longer to complete their education. Early drug addiction and different forms of addiction, not just drugs.
mhm,
So these are huge in terms of your children's well-being. So if you are really rooting for your children, you have to be rooting for each other as co-parents. You cannot be tearing down each other. And when we want to say negative, make negative comments about our co-parent, say it to a trusted adult or a therapist,
mhm,
because some of the, I'd say maybe the four foundational rules of co-parenting is that you never badmouth your ex,
Hmm.
that you ensure that when there is separation, you don't go a million miles away. You stay within proximity so that the children have access to the other parent with ease.
Hmm.
They stay in their same school district and community, because if you rob them of those connections, you are
Hmm.
disabling their potential.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Also, and I know people's hair will stand on end when I say this, couples counseling. And when I say couples counseling, I'm not saying you are going to couples counseling together.
Mhm.
I
Sorry, hang on.
mean,
I'm gonna take my kid down. I'm sorry. He's making so much noise. I'll be right back. So sorry.
mhm,
It's kids. Sorry, go ahead.
right. So again, shared co-parenting time, that should be non-negotiable because the children need to be anchored in a relationship with each parent.
Hmm. Hmm.
That should be non-negotiable.
Yeah.
And as I already said, couples counseling, not that you are doing it together, but in the season that you are in where tension is high, there's a lot of emotional volatility and roller coaster. We have to relearn how to speak to each other without the venom and the animosity pouring out.
Hmm.
And so it requires a language, what I call like team language. Your mom and I have discussed, your dad and I believe
Hmm.
it's in the best interest of us as a family too. And this does not come naturally in a season where you are emotionally challenged. So that is something that I strongly encourage people to do, is to relearn how you speak and communicate to each other as co-parents so that the language is neutral
Hmm.
and it does not have a negative impact on the kids.
Yeah, yeah, thank you for sharing. This is such a complex topic. I mean, I've touched on it. I'm not an expert at it, but I've experienced most of what you're talking about. Um, I know COVID impacted parenting styles for many people, but there are times when parents cannot be healthy in a co-parenting relationship where the court has to step in to protect the child because either one of the parents is very unhealthy or both are healthy, and the court has to legally remove one parent or both. So talk to us a bit more about that. When the court is involved, what has been your experience? I mean, working with clients, obviously you don't have to release anything confidential. Just give us a little taste and an idea of your thought on that.
What I would say is that going to court over kids, especially when there's volatility, should be a last resort.
Mm, yeah,
I recommend communication over legislation, but clearly it is not always practical.
yeah.
And what I will say is that in developed countries, as well in Canada especially, dealing with the courts can come across as less intrusive than other places,
Mm,
especially where it relates to child support. Because you can have a person's wages garnished. You can always go back to the courts after 2 years, 3 years as the child gets older to ask them to reevaluate the child support payment.
mhm,
But that is not always the option for many people. And I know when I was raising my children, I was in Jamaica. And the indignity of going to the family court and sitting with other people in public, tearing up the men, or especially the men, that they had the children with was not an option for me. So I forfeited a lot. Once I had my divorce settlement, which did not include a child support arrangement.
Hmm.
What I asked for, however, was custody of my children because they were extremely young, right? They were under, they were both under 6 years at the time, really young. Because when my relationship started to unravel, my second daughter was just weeks old.
Hmm.
So I was more focused on their care and health because if your children are not healthy, that opens an entirely new box of anxiety for you as a parent, and especially as the residential parent. So I would say, in as much as we are able, keep the courts out of it. But initially, it is in the best interest of both parents to get settlement on custody, get settlement on child support payment, and honor it. Because if you do not honor it, the other parent can always go back to the courts and ask them to vary the order. And certainly in the case of violence or even ill health, one parent can become mentally ill. You can't sit back idly and ignore that. So, in cases like that, you have no choice but to have the courts review the situation in the best interest of the child. And that does not mean, especially in the case of mental health, that does not mean that the other parent cannot heal and get back on their feet to parent competently. It does not mean that. So, this is why we need to remove the animosity, and so that we have a child-centered focus rather than a me versus you mentality and a modus operandi. Because this is no longer about us as lovers. This is about us as caregivers to our children, rooting for them for the best outcomes. And
Hmm.
if we're not doing that, what we're doing again is destroying the foundation on which they are to build their life skills.
Hmm.
So we wouldn't be serving our children optimally if this is the approach we take. So it does take a lot of maturity, and that's why you need coaching. And for some people, you also need therapy because some relationships break up in such a cruel and destructive manner that sometimes one parent is so hurt and on the back foot that they do need long-term healing,
Hmm.
right? All of us will need some healing, but some cases are definitely more severe than others. It's just a fact of life.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah. You just shared part of my story. I guess that's what makes me relate to everybody. That's why I don't have a niche I put people in. I've been through the court system for years, and in the process of trying to be there for my child, I did develop severe mental health. And going back and forth, it really took a toll on my identity as a parent, as a mother, as a woman, and then I was tossed in between. So was my child, because at the time, how can a child understand what's going on with mom, what's going on with dad? Why are lawyers involved? It is extensive, it's exhausting, and it leaves an everlasting print on anybody's soul in life. Maybe the phase is gone, but I have trauma from it.
Mhm,
That's the
mhm.
best way I can put it. But I know there's pros and cons in going to court, and I wasted quite a bit of time and energy
And
and
money
all of
sometimes, and money
yes.
sometimes if you can't get
Yeah.
legal aid. But the fact is, a person has to do what is necessary at the time.
Hmm.
And because that person is the only one in the relationship, it has to be left to their judgment. No one from outside can say you shouldn't do this. No, because we are not in the situation. That person has to objectively assess. And again,
Hmm.
if they need a second opinion, you share your what you're going through with your coach or your therapist.
Hmm.
As a one thing I will say, fortunately for me,
Hmm.
because I went on to have a third child from a long-term relationship, and this was not good for my children. However, neither my ex-husband nor this long-term partner of my third child ever wanted full custody because they just did not want the responsibility,
Hmm.
right? Who wants the responsibility of getting up and waking up and, the physical aspect? And when children are 0 to 10 years,
Hmm.
a lot of it is physical. Getting ready for school, getting lunch boxes, co-curricular activities. So, um,
Hmm.
fortunately for me, I say I did not have that emotional push and pull.
Hmm.
But I am not saying that was good for the children,
Hmm.
right? And how some parents, like in the case of my second co-parent, that's the dad of my third daughter,
Hmm.
he wanted the form of him as a great parent, right? But didn't want to do the substantial work. And also because, let me backtrack a bit. So in that relationship, I had left Jamaica and gone to the UK, where I lived for 5 years. I was doing graduate studies, and that was a part of my life plan, my growth as personal and professional growth. Because one thing we all know as parents is that the demands on your life, whether as a mom or a dad, is always changing. And just as you prepare for a job, you have to prepare for parenting. So I had already planned pretty early after leaving university that I always wanted to go back to graduate school. And so when she turned 5 years old, that opportunity came about. So we left Jamaica with my 13-year-old and my 5-year-old, all three of us, to a totally new experience of Scotland. It couldn't be any different from Jamaica. It was night and day, both culturally and weather-wise. But it gave me a freedom and it lifted a weight off of me because I saw new horizons coming to being. And these men were not showing up emotionally or financially for their kids. They were what I call doing the bare minimum of parenting.
Hmm.
I wouldn't call it co-parenting because co-parenting means you are cooperating, you are communicating, and you are consistent in what you're doing in a good way.
Yeah.
Well, they were consistent in not showing up.
Hmm.
So it opened a new world of hope to me.
Hmm.
I was now operating with faith-filled eyes, and not a fear-filled heart. Because during these early years, you're wondering, how am I going to make it? Even though I was doing it afraid, because one thing I was never going to do is to stop persevering and to move forward. Because movement, however small, is medicine. It is moving you in small steps towards your goals. And
Hmm.
I always recommend to clients and anybody to whom I give advice, do not take life in gulps because you are balancing your emotional stability
Mm-hmm.
with the reservoir of resources to serve your children's needs.
Mm-hmm.
So take it in bite-sized pieces. So when I arrived there, one of my fears was, how will they adjust? And I had two culture shocks when I went. And one was, on a personal note, how well my children adjusted. Number two was the mild manner and civility of the Scottish people I met and the opportunities that came along for my children. I no longer had to worry about how they got to school because this was provided by the council. The 5-year-old had a bus that picked her up right at the door and brought her back home. The 13-year-old had a bus pass, which I must say was free, that took her to and from school every day. When
Mm-hmm.
I was back in Jamaica, these were a cost.
Yeah.
And I got to study. I won't say in peace because you're a mom, your time is, your time is just so much in demand, and it was a real high pressure course.
Mm-hmm.
But that encouragement came from knowing that I was on a journey that was moving me forward. That at the end of the day, this qualification was going to allow me to move up the ranks professionally and occupationally.
Mm-hmm.
So, to anyone out there who is wondering, how do I move forward? You move forward in small steps. You look at your own talents and abilities and assess them and say, which one is it I want to build on? What skill do I want to build on? Right?
Yeah.
Because for each of us, every situation and circumstance is different. There's no one size fit all.
Mm-hmm.
So, in your season of what appears to be fear and almost sometimes a hopelessness,
Mm-hmm.
there is always a glimmer of light and a window that's opening that you have to look for and press it open and open it wider. Block out the naysayers because that is an important survival tool.
Mm-hmm.
Only take in positive vibes and thoughts and advice. That's what you are trying to build and to encourage, to build up yourself and your emotional strength so
Mm-hmm.
you are able to move forward because your personal growth is what's going to move you forward and it's also what's going to help your children. It's also what's going to help you that when you look back, you'll say that this had it not been for this breakup, I would not have moved in that direction. And I, from my own self, I know that were it not for these breakups and these um, insufficient co-parenting relationships, I would not have been pushed
Mm-hmm.
and inspired to do much of what I've done, to go to Scotland, to do graduate studies. When it was time for my third child to go to college, and I was discussing with her dad, how we're going to afford and what decisions will be made. And he said to me, oh, it's $1 million for her to stay here in Jamaica, so why don't you let her stay? But by then, her two sisters were already in Canada, settled. And how would it appear to a child that her sisters have had this opportunity and they're living in this country, but yet she should get an education that was different from theirs? In my eyes, that wouldn't have been a good look. Also, having lived in the UK, what I learned was that as long as you were not born and raised in these countries, and no matter how brilliant you are, if you do not have an education from the UK, the US, or Canada,
Mm-hmm.
that qualification is never viewed as equal to qualifications from elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, as a Black woman from a developing country, I had learned that. And I was going to support my daughter
Mm-hmm.
to be a beneficiary of that. Because what I wanted for my children
Mm-hmm.
was to improve their life chances, despite the fact that they did not get the co-parenting support that they needed.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted to offer the opportunity for them to be able to be in a world where there were multiple opportunities and that they could work towards where they wanted to go without being deliberately behind the eighth ball.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that was a biggie for me. And it was sad for me when I made a financial arrangement with him and he didn't honor it. But despite not honoring it, I was able to honor it myself and for her to graduate from UBC. And I am extremely proud of the fact that my three children were able to graduate from college
Mm-hmm.
from universities of excellence.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. Um, Now walk us through the healing journey because that looks very different for everybody. It's not a one size fit all. What was your process of healing and how do you help others heal?
So you are absolutely right. The process of healing is different for every single person, and I can't stress that enough. But here's what's important about healing. Healing has to be intentional, healing is internal, and it is personal. For me, my faith played a huge role in my healing, and it still does in my life. And that is because I grew up in a traditional nuclear family with committed Christian parents who were Catholics, but they were committed to their church and their family life. And I'll always say, I wasn't aware of them being spirit-filled, speaking in tongues individuals, but I saw them daily living practical steps in their Christian life of loving your neighbor as yourself and doing everything you could to help other people and putting your family first.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was my faith. And I had a tiny group of what I call the Whoville or the inner circle who supported me. We went to prayer meetings, we prayed together, they did acts of service. So, whatever you choose as your healing mechanism, you have to stick to it and be consistent.
Mm-hmm.
So, faith was my life vest, but I still had to do the swimming. So, if you are, whether it's journaling, whether it's EFT, whatever the techniques that you are going to use, mindfulness, you have to be consistent and you have to keep at it. And healing has no timeline of its own. So don't let people tell you that after 3 months, oh, you should be feeling, why are you still wallowing in this? No,
Yeah.
it has no timeline of its own. That's the way healing works.
Mm-hmm.
So you go 5 steps forward, 10 steps backward, 20 steps forward, 2 steps backward. It's just the way that this season of your life, both healing and grief are inextricably intertwined
Mm-hmm.
because you are grieving a relationship that you never intended that you would lose.
Mm-hmm.
And here's what's even more tricky and difficult about this. You are going to be re-triggered over the long term because your co-parent is somebody who you are going to be continually seeing. There's no getting away from that.
Mm-hmm.
You are going to meet them at the school events, you're going to meet them at the graduations, you're going to meet them at the engagement parties, you're going to meet them at the weddings. It is a long-term relationship, and that's why civility needs to be the focus.
Mm-hmm.
right? So that healing it is an absolute necessity for that reason.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So faith was my foundation, but you have to find your own framework and work on that framework.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You absolutely have to do it. No one can do that for you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. How can we block out the noise that we don't need? Because at times there's judgment not only from ourselves, our friends, family, communities, also the world, how they make pain and healing look like sometimes. They make it look like sometimes that healing is weakness. You're not supposed to feel, you're not supposed to do it, you're doing it wrong. How can we block it out and focus on ourselves? Because there's a lot of noise.
There is a lot of noise, and what I have found and what I recommend to people, values. What are your values? And this is a time when you seriously have to confront your values because this is what is going to move you forward and it's going to instruct how you go through your healing. So you have to decide, what is it I want for myself? What is it I want for my children? What does it look like? Integrity, honesty, perseverance. What are the values that I am going to build my healing around?
Hmm.
And once you decide on that, you have to ignore everybody else that's in the space who are not offering a complementary offer to that,
Hmm.
right? Because you will get into a cognitive dissonance and you cannot entertain every single person. So you have to be totally focused. If you have a therapist, you're working with a therapist, but it must be values based. And those are the values that you choose, not what somebody else forces upon you. Those are completely your choices.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. So give us an idea of what it is like when people are working with you. What are some of the steps that you walk them through to begin their healing journey?
Okay, so I have a three-pillar program: heal, grow, and thrive. So your healing, we talk about where exactly you are. What exactly are you feeling at this point in your life? Because you have to unravel all of that. And then we go into what would be your preferred method to pursue or with methods. Then we do what in organizations would be called a SWOT analysis.
Mhm.
But we look at the options that you have. What are your special skills that you have? In fact, the grow in go, the G for grow
Mhm.
is, how do you want to grow? What are your options? What are your talents and abilities? Right?
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah.
The R is in what are the reasons you want to grow in this area? The O is for the options and the opportunities that you personally have. Is it an opportunity to start a stay-at-home business because of the ages of your children? So you don't have to be running up and down on the road, picking up kids or, um, running from work to school, it can be, it can sap your energy if you have to do that. So is it a case where you can start a stay-at-home business? Is it a case where you can do homeschooling of your kids, depending on the ages of the kids as well, right? And the W in the grow is the way forward. What is your way forward? What is it that you want to do? And we look at short term and we look at long term because sometimes we start something in the short term, but we realize that we can actually get into a longer term situation. And
Mhm.
therefore, life has a way of mushrooming when we start something. You start something and you never know. When I started this, I just started as a hobby to encourage other people,
See the cat?
right?
Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, when I started as a hobby to encourage other people. Little did I know that there would be so much more coming out and the responses that I would get. And just that sense of commitment that people need this. And the more I share my experiences, it's the more I get responses.
Mhm.
And so, yes, so we go through where you are in your healing, how you want to heal. We go through the grow formula and we look at community.
Mhm.
Like me, like other people who have gone through this season of their life and thought when they were going through it, they were absolutely crushed. You felt like you were powder. You would never coagulate again. You would never stand up whole. And I am able, and many others, to talk through that pain with full vulnerability.
Mhm.
I can talk about the overcoming of the pain. I can talk about the challenges of moving forward. And I can talk about where I am today and that there's a huge tribe, I call it a tribe. There's a huge tribe of women out there who are now thriving after the crushing of separation and divorce.
Yeah.
And they have come back stronger, inspired to uplift women who are at a different stage of the journey. And that's how we thrive. If you want to be good at something, want to be good at public speaking, you look for an accomplished public speaker and
Mhm.
you attend their courses. And that applies to every aspect of life. If you want to be good at something, you have to go to somebody who has already ran through the program and has come out victorious on the other end. And victorious just means that the bitterness has gone.
Mhm.
You are not in any acrimony with anybody. You are not in the back and forth, and you are totally looking ahead. You
Mhm.
have gone through the process of forgiveness. You have left that baggage behind, and you are now feeling almost as light as a feather. And you can talk about it without the pain that dogged you
Mhm.
when it happened, and when you couldn't even talk about it without the tears rolling down and the sobbing taking place.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Thank you so much for sharing. So as we wrap up this amazing episode, um, where can people find you? And when they reach out, do you send them resources or just a taste of your program and what you do?
Okay, so they can find me. I am on Facebook. Unfortunately, last year I lost all my Facebook and my groups. So I've been rebuilding since this year, so they can find me on Facebook,
Mhm.
Clover Johnston. I am also on Instagram as Clover the Co-Parenting Coach.
Mhm.
Um, yes, so they can send me a DM and they can also email Johnston, Johnston dot Clover at gmail.com. And my program is called the Co-Parent Transformation Accelerator.
Thank you for sharing. One last question for you. What is the meaning of life for you?
What's the meaning of life? Okay, so life is a journey, and along this journey, we learn from the unexpected, we learn from the painful, we learn from the roller coasters of life.
Hmm.
And from that, we draw experiences that inform the way we live our life going forward.
Hmm.
So, life is a journey, it's not a destination, and it has many twists and turns. But from it, we should draw positives from the negatives that we have experienced.
Hmm. Wow, thank you so much for sharing. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for doing the work that you're doing. I look forward to following you on your journey and welcome to come back anytime to share. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're so welcome.